today with somebody that I admire a whole bunch, Ryan Ginard from halfway across the world, who's, well, this is recorded. We're going to try to keep it a secret, but who is meeting us today at a more decent hour. Last time that he met with us for DPP office hours, it was at a ungodly hour of the night. So, hi, Ryan. Thanks so much for joining.
How's it going? I kind of get up at any time to have these conversations. So appreciate the
You're
flexibility
full
on
of
this
it.
one. Yeah, yeah.
Boy, anybody will give you money, right? It must be great fundraising. Oh my goodness. So we're here, among other things, because you wrote a book that got published, another book, but also I'm just very generally curious about all the initiatives that it must be hard keeping up with you. Um, you started a fundraiser training program in Australia. Give us some details about like all the other stuff beyond your full-time position.
Yeah, definitely. Well, they're all complementary to the work we do. So it's the thing that keeps me sharp, keeps me innovative. And obviously the day to day is kind of the execution of, what we're trying to achieve, and that's kind of professionalize the sector. But yeah, Fundraiser for Australia came about. I don't know if we mentioned in our last conversation, but there is a shortfall of talent. It's not that the people that we currently have in the space aren't talented. It's just that fundraising is growing here. Australia is very much in a moment. The government has actually made a commitment to double philanthropy by 2030. And,
I read about that when you shared it. Yeah.
yeah, and so the thing is, though, we still need those people to make the ask and to kind of have the strategy to make sure that goal and very lofty goal is achieved, right? So we decided to create an organization that goes out and identifies individuals that aren't currently fundraisers and bring them into the space by really looking at the skills that make the best fundraisers. And there's a kind of an art and a science to it, but at the end of the day, it's just people with good people skills. So the ability to hold a conversation, know enough about subject matter to kind of connect the dots. And we've just been finding some amazing people. We had our pilot successfully completed, so we had 19 graduates there. And now we're kind of going through the impact report there and reporting out to everyone in our sector. One thing, if the pilot was successful or not, we wanted to make sure that they got the data. And, if like the Fundraising Institute for Australia wanted to pick it up, they could. But, we've done some reflection on the board, and we decided to create a social enterprise and now put some real structure around it and kind of scale it. So we're hoping to graduate 1,000 people by 2030. This will be a project solely through to that date because, ideally that's when we doubled philanthropy, right? And I think with some compounding years and building an alumni around it and sharing job opportunities and having communities of practice, that hopefully a lot of those will be in the space and doing their own recruiting and using our principles. And yeah, it's been fun. It has grounded me in the basics again. So sometimes
Uh-huh.
when we're doing the curriculum, it's like, well, let's look at major donors. But I'm starting
Mhm.
to really kind of look about how we build trust with donors, and we seem to be kind of taking for granted that like middle section. So we focus on kind of the top end of the pyramid, or the very steep flagpole now. And had an article on LinkedIn kind of compare it to the Burj Khalifa. But the reality is we have to steward donors and not take them for granted, not keep on just because they don't give $1,000 per se that they get bombarded with emails. It's just bad strategy. It's lazy segmenting. And if we kind of work with them, and that's why I appreciate the work you're doing. You really are kind of in the grassroots building that structure, and we're building best practice. So yeah, I'm stoked with the success we've had to date, but now it really is
So,
kind of time to roll up our sleeves and go to that next level.
so, and this relates to your book. Sorry for the cough, but in my assessment, you're one of the few systems thinkers in philanthropy. There's not a lot of them, and especially because lots of people rise through the kind of major gifts rank, and that's if it were music, it's people who write melodies versus people who look at the harmony.
Yeah.
Um, but is your assessment that in order to achieve that ambitious goal that Australia has set itself, which I feel more people should be talking about, do you think the biggest problem is the shortfall of fundraisers, qualified professional fundraisers? Is what role do you think that has in the mix of achieving that goal?
Well, it's building a fundraising culture as well. Like, and that's not just in our organizations, that's not through the social sector. It really is kind of Australia wide. Our kind of ratio of giving is kind of down compared to most of our Western compatriots, as it were. So the fundraisers actually play a key role in that, because they're educating board members, they're educating leadership, they're executing strategies. And yeah, as you kind of noted, everything for me is cause and effect. So everything is complementary, and Fundraise for Australia really was the bridge between the one solitary chapter in future philanthropy and what we see now as Nonprofit Moneyball. It was a fun one to write, and really I was kind of talking as fundraising as a team sport and try to break it down so people that are coming into the space get a 101 where a lot of those analogies are relatable. And while Australia, I use a few too many American sports, I think that they definitely get the gist of it.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, so what is your main thesis in the book, which I feel is related to all this that we've been talking about?
Well, if you've seen the movie, it's about the small teams competing with the big teams. And my thesis for this really is that you can be a small nonprofit under $50,000, and you can go out there and secure an amazing fundraiser that can take you up to a 7-figure budget within kind of 2 to 3 years. If you invest in people, you're kind of are committed to the cause, you know where you're going, you're values driven. Again, it's what we see, and we have seen probably for the past 20 years, is if you're a good fundraiser, you're bouncing around kind of the smaller organizations, and then you get swallowed up by the bigger organizations because they pay the best wages. They have a larger amount of donors. So, your, penetration rates are a lot higher. So you then start raising kind of 8-figure gifts, and, people just stay in there. So how can a small nonprofit that maybe is seeding one of the most innovative solutions to solving homelessness, who's to say that the bigger organizations that are naturally focused are doing the right thing? So, how do we really double down on innovation in the space and not help them scale the solutions, but kind of see how we can replicate what works? And I believe that we do that through fundraisers, like the storytelling, kind of connecting them to funders, and then funders reinvesting year after year to help kind of build that solution out. And the end goal, right, is systems change, and that can only be done by changing the laws. So if you're telling good stories, relatable stories, when it comes around to election time, politicians are looking to see how they can sell a vision. And nonprofits are the engine rooms, along with education as well. The engine rooms of innovation. So that's why I kind of work in higher ed. If you've ever gone through some kind of academic papers, that's where you'll find all the best ideas. And definitely would encourage folks.
Exactly. It's just they're buried inside a ton. I read this paper the other day where after like 20 pages of literature review and math, and it said, well, the purpose for this paper is to be helpful to fundraisers. And I thought, well, good luck with that.
It's all in the delivery, right? So that's why fundraisers are
totally and the storytelling. No, so it's right back to your point.
We're translators at the end of the day. Again, we just need to know enough to be dangerous and connect the dots and bring resources to the communities we serve.
Okay, so I love that your book is eminently, kind of like your last one, very practical. I mean, you actually advise that people check out Calendly because that's going to improve their career. Yeah. So I love that broad range, from the the what and the how to.
Yeah, it definitely zooms out and zooms in. You've got to set the stage, but then you've got to get them on the path, because we can look at, what the future looks like in 10 years. But, then we we're not really accountable, right? So Future Philanthropy is a very safe book to write, because in 10 years time things will change, technologies will change, and a lot of it will be obsolete, and I'll go, well, I had a crack. That's what futurists do. They kind of make assumptions and guesses of what the future can look like. But if you bring it down to that granular level and just go, look, I also want to see you win, I also want to see you guys be successful, here's some simple tips to get on that path to that 10-year goal, right?
Mm-hmm. And so you start the book speaking about the talent.
Mm.
And that's a lot of this that we were just discussing, and you talk a little bit about organizational structure.
Mm.
And I'd be interested in hearing, of course, these must be early days for your book, but what people are, how people are reacting to that. I find that when I speak with fundraisers, a lot of the time is, well, we have a fairly basic idea, of course they're understaffed, but they kind of know what direction they want to go, but oh boy, leadership.
Yeah.
So that just seems, from a fundraiser's perspective, to be a roadblock. What has your feedback been? What were your inspirations to when you wrote that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I always kind of think outside the box and from a totally different box. But I think kind of sometimes, so not having it random thoughts and having some sort of a narrative arc, again, kind of looking at that front office and back office of professional sports teams. So it was kind of, if you don't know anything about sport, it doesn't matter, because I kind of break down what those departments are. And, the back office for a lot of sporting teams is kind of like the board, right? So you've got the owner, kind of the general manager, and then you go down through the coaching. And everyone has a specific role to play, and but they're all committed to the Holy Grail, whatever that kind of world championship is. And while fundraising isn't necessarily you win at the end, like we don't know what a win is, because every organization is different, but it's definitely not just hitting your fundraising goals. It's about, again, what can be. I would say nonprofits are set up to put themselves out of business. So how do we kind of create? Yeah. So we do want to solve things. We don't just want to keep people in jobs. Like, I don't want to see a person, die on the streets, and I want to see them in housing. So how do we kind of fund that? But again, how do we kind of advance it in a compounding progress kind of way? I'm a very much progress every day, and that's why I kind of talk about strategic planning and strategic phasing, where if we hit a milestone, we can keep on continue with the plan. We don't have to sit down for a day in a random kind of Art Deco building and get in a moderator to discuss what that next step might be. It needs to be evolutionary, not kind of reactionary, and different voices coming in. How can we keep that flow? How do we keep good board members going and not kind of termed out? But there's mechanisms to get the people that don't get it to move on and perhaps consider some other way of volunteering. So everything, again, provides structure, but loosely, because I believe that too much structure stifles innovation. So definitely in terms of how organizations operate, it really is have big goals, have achievable goals, and celebrate the wins along the way. Because again, you have a 17-game season for the NFL. You're celebrating every win. You're not there to kind of tank. It's just peaking at the right time, bringing on the right personnel, and just again talking what a successful I guess World Series caliber team looks like. It's fun.
I'm not a sports person. You might have noticed. I'm the music nerd type of person.
That's okay. We have mathletes.
I'm learning a lot today.
Yeah, we have mathletes and everything. We can always kind of find the threads. So it's again, there's no silver bullet to being a successful organization, but there is a way we can all link arms. And we've said in different times we've had conversations, it's all about participatory leadership. Like, know when to lead, know when to link arms, and know to when to get the hell out of the way. And sometimes you need to get the hell out of the way of your fundraisers and let them do the work.
I have a couple of curveballs to throw at you.
See, you're on it. You got the anecdotes.
I did my research for today. Okay, the first one is the concept of Moneyball in baseball,
Mm.
which I think your book is slightly different to like the original Moneyball. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's very practical and it makes a very good connection. But in baseball, kind of what happened, my reading of the situation is that it worked so well that they kind of optimized the game to a point where it was super boring.
Mm.
Which started, the kind of a decline of the game. And
Yeah.
now there's a little bit of a revolution and they're changing things.
Mm.
Do you think that's possible in philanthropy? And I think of that in the context, and you're kind of advocating for the contrary in the fact in your book, and you're looking at pipeline and a lot of those things. But the concept that you can optimize things and drive them to the ground, and you alluded to that with
well, again, that's kind of us putting ourselves out of business, right? A systems change like isn't sexy. It takes time, and if it's boring, sign me up, because I guess that kind of goes where my nerding out goes. Like I want to be in it for the long haul. I don't kind of approach this with as a fickle opportunist. Like when we put forward gift proposals, it's not just for the year. It has to have on and off ramps, so we can continue to grow and double down on success. So it's not kind of grinding into the ground. It's we could say like the University of Texas, where I was at previously, they're about to raise $6 billion, right, in their capital campaign. Everyone is just like firing on all cylinders. It's like the bigger gifts, those inspirational, transformative gifts are becoming second nature now. So where do people go? Do they kind of spur off and then kind of repeat it out? I think what we need to start doing is, again, professionalizing the field, having people paid fairly, and then they can kind of go where their values align, not just where they have to go to, afford all the cost of living increases. Like we have to take that individual into a community, and it's hard. And again, I don't know, but it's kind of conversations like this, right, that can kind of spur a step forward. And that's the only reason I write. I write for the field, and with this book, knowing everything I learned from last time, being able to get it to a point where the book is literally, every book that goes out now is break even, because I want to make it as affordable as possible to get these ideas out there and spark conversations. I love being challenged and love learning from it, because I'm not going to solve any of kind of our world's ills on my own or in my lifetime. But if we can kind of get a bit closer, then fantastic.
Well, second curveball today, which is talking about change management.
Yeah.
Especially in large established organizations, where I think from the Moneyball example, but also a little bit what I see with you, right? So you've gone to an environment where maybe it was more on the fringes, right? So you didn't stay at Texas, University of Texas, and you're building this, and a lot of the change sometimes seems to happen at the fringes or in new projects versus established institutions transforming themselves. That seems very hard, so I don't know if this is a question really. Do you think there are organizations that are more likely to be able to apply your nonprofit Moneyball than others? Is the ground more fertile in some places than in others?
I think so. I think there's we always have that existential question of, is there too many nonprofits? And there, I don't think there is. I think if there's a need and there's the ability to serve, do I think that we can kind of be smarter and more efficient in kind of service delivery? Yes. Do I think some nonprofits are created on a whim or because of an event, and or you're trying to build a kind of new career? Yeah, I do. And there should be ways to funnel talent into the right spots and have them grow that way. But can people, apply the principles? Yes. Like, I mean, we can use the Calendly example that I use. It seems very simple, right? But what it does is it tells you so many different things. It's like there's so many different verticals just by simply putting that link in a meeting spot. If someone just books 15 minutes, you prep for 15 minutes. You know it's going to be a transactional conversation. If it goes to 30 minutes, you know, again, it's kind of building on that steps. And then when you've got an hour, you can really run through everything. You kind of build rapport. You can land the plane kind of nicely with actionable next steps, capture those, learn much more, you know, what's more information versus what's high value insights into how they do their philanthropy. So that is a very simple thing, and it's a free, you know, it's a free platform. So having fundraisers do that, and then kind of then weaving it into their strategy and going, okay, I've only got 15 minutes. How do I kind of deconstruct that and make sure it's a successful use of my time, a successful use of the organization's time? And of course, the donor, are you going to move them in 15 minutes? Yes, you can. Because there's other parts in the book that talks about strategy and how you approach it. And again, how do you kind of, I mean, the most simple thing which people have really kind of utilized, and I know that at the ANU where I'm at now, they've been really kind of latching onto it. And it's that kind of compounding notion of first thing you do when you get to desk is do outreach for free people, and then your portfolio and your pipelines never dry because you're always looking at it, and quantity leads to quality, right? So yeah, all these little things are there because what's the point of writing a book and trying to, you know, make myself out to be you know, a big visionary when people can't come along or they can't jump on that ride at different stations. So my writing is very unique. I think people understand that, and it goes highs and lows, and you know that kind of sometimes you go where it's going, and then right at the end it will hook back in. Again, that's how we digest information, right? So whether they find inspiration on page 210 or they get it right from that kind of prelogue chapter in, you know, pre-season training, as I called it, and the 100 quick steps to, you know, get involved in your community, then so be it. So it's not a blueprint. I always say blueprint, but that's kind of a bit grandiose. It's again, it's a coffee table book where you're like, oh, I remember this, and you can kind of go grab it, and you know, it's a helpful guide.
Let's, as the last question or topic, you mentioned, oh my goodness, sorry. You mentioned the need for expanding fundraiser knowledge, and I love that, which is, you know, kind of why we're here today. Yeah. What do you think is the role is for sectorial associations versus other types? I don't know, like random online communities like the Participation Project. You know, what do you think the role of each one is, and where's there more opportunity in your assessment?
Well, the opportunity's got to come from where the need is, right? Because before we did Fundraise for Australia, we had a very frank and open discussion going, is this a value add? Like, is this actually doing the right thing, or are we kind of taking oxygen away from other organizations that, you know, could absorb it? And we saw it at the end, you know, doing kind of the SWOT analysis, right? And going, well, no, this is actually before their spectrum of kind of reach. So we're actually bringing people in so that they can be more successful, as long as we have those open lines of communications and connect the dots. But the knowledge goes to the professionalization of the sector, and I think that we've discussed that at length. And I know that we've randomly meandered onto kind of same conversations on LinkedIn from time to time. And knowledge doesn't have to come from text. It can come from conversations like this. We just got to find a coalition of the willing and people that, you know, want to make a difference and want to learn and realize that, you know, change is not binary. There's no kind of straight line to success. It's all over the place. And like, you know, if you looked at my resume, if you looked at my day-to-day, if you looked at kind of these post-it notes on, you think this guy is the most random, craziest person in the world. But it all comes together. Like, nothing I do is not by design. I'm very intentional. And, you know, that's for me to, again, it has to be by design, but it has to be, again, on-ramps and off-ramps for people to get on, and encouraging people. And what we're doing now as part of that social enterprise component for Fundraiser for Australia is to help nonprofits find talent as well. So people that are just started to 3 years in their career and use these nonprofit Moneyball principles to find candidates that have high ceilings, don't have to necessarily be kind of 10 years, or those fundraisers that jump from organization to organization. It's just kind of everyone, one domino falls and then everyone kind of moves along, as it were, and kind of moves a little bit up. But we're helping those because, they're paying $500 to a lot of organizations that take them for granted, membership organizations, and they're paying $500 for a static job board ad that don't bring in people. They don't diversify the pool. That's one thing that Nonprofit Moneyball can do. It can actually bring new people, new voices into the field and diversify what fundraising is, so that fundraisers reflect the communities that they come from and that they're fundraising on behalf of. So it's all very experimental, but again, it's intentional. Like fundraising is a amazing privilege as a role. It's values driven and it pays well. Like in Australia, that's a big thing as well, is that entry level fundraisers get $85,000 here, plus kind of 12% superannuation. So they're earning six figures. Like the day they decide to leave Starbucks or leave kind of stacking shelves. So I want to find anyone that wants to be a fundraiser and actually wants to kind of grow in the space. And I'm going to make a commitment to everyone that becomes an alumni that I'll be with them through to 2030 as a mentor, a friend, and give them as much opportunity as they can handle, because there is a lot out there.
My head is exploding. Ryan, this sounds amazing. Thank you for making all this happen. I mean, it's exciting to watch from afar. Yeah, for sure.
It's fun.
What is your, what are your closing remarks, ideas, recommendations? Maybe thinking of not only in Australia, but for people that are in all types of fundraising contexts.
I think just be great advocates for the field in which you work in. If you've got a friend that's going, oh, what is fundraising? And they go, I wish I could do that. I'm ready for a career pivot. I want more meaning in my day to day. Invite them in. Like, just don't, it's not, people need to be asked sometimes. And, we're in the business of asking. So how about we kind of, make a commitment to recruit free people to the field moving forward? Because if we kind of think of everyone that's in the DPP project as members, if they all brought free people in, that's a lot of fundraisers. And that's a lot more, even if they come in and just on a back of the napkin math, right? If they come in and double their salary, and they kind of should be 4x in their salary at a minimum, think of all the money that brings in. It's expanding the pie as well. It's not we can be an abundant community.
Amazing. I'm going to post that in our next newsletter, that invitation.
Yeah, and let's gamify it and get them to nominate it. I'm sure you can whip up something on ChatGPT, which will have a running scoreboard when people say they've recruited someone.
I have a feeling, you spent some time there. Maybe at the same time I was playing with ChatGPT too.
It's a fun tool, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, Ryan, thank you so very much. It's great. We hope you have a great rest of your day. And maybe when you write the next book, which seems to come out every 6 months, we chat again. I'm joking. That was joking.
Well, I have got ideas for other ones, but I think I have to write a text for Fundraise for Australia first. So I'm going to kind of get a bit more grounded.
Oh my goodness, that's going to be great. So I do have an idea for Nonprofit Moneyball, is that it's so good that actually I think you should be thinking about chunking it into pieces, posting it on LinkedIn, just kind of distributing all of that, because it's immensely valuable and very practical.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, and unfortunately, while I don't think there's going to be a movie version of it, I think Brad Pitt's turned it down. Hopefully, we can be the own heroes in our own stories, right? So, I'll definitely break it down for you.
Thanks a bunch. Have a great one, Ryan.
All right, buddy. Keep up the good work.
Take care.